When David faced Goliath, he had every reason to be afraid. After all, Goliath was a giant of a man, a professional fighter, and he had armor that weighed over 5,000 pounds. Not to mention, he'd already intimidated everyone else into submission. But despite the intimidating opposition, David wasn't paralyzed by fear. Instead, he chose faith. And because he did, God gave him the victory. In today's message, we're going to look at 5 ways that we can apply this same kind of faith in our own lives. Number 1, faith over fear. When David first saw Goliath, he didn't know what to do. He asked his father, Jesse, to get him some armor so he could fight the giant. But when the armor was brought, he realized it didn't fit. At that moment, David could have panicked. He knew he had to do something to defeat Goliath, but he didn't know what. If you've ever been in a situation like this before, I want you to know that you're not alone. We all face moments in life where we feel overwhelmed and out of our depth. Maybe you're facing a difficult decision, or maybe you're dealing with an impossible situation. Whatever it is, just know that God wants you to choose faith over fear. Even though David didn't know how he was going to defeat Goliath, he didn't let fear paralyze him either. Instead, he believed that God would help him. This gave him the courage to take on Goliath, even though he was afraid. Sometimes we try to be brave without first acknowledging our fears. And when we do this, our attempts at bravery often fall flat. But David was honest about how he felt. He told King Saul, I feel very small and weak. I'm only a boy, and you're asking me to fight this huge, experienced warrior. I'm not sure I can do it. But then David made a decision. He wouldn't let his fear control him. So instead of giving into his fear, he chose to believe in God. And that's what gave him the strength to defeat Goliath. In the same way, when we're honest about our fears and then choose to trust God, we'll be able to face whatever it is we're afraid of with courage. Number 2, God can use anyone. Goliath thought he was too big and too strong for anyone to defeat him, but he was wrong. David wasn't a warrior, he was a shepherd. He wasn't even an Israelite, he was a Judean. He didn't have any training or experience fighting. All he had was his faith in God. But God doesn't need highly trained professionals. He just needs people who are willing to obey him. That's why he used David to defeat Goliath. Sometimes we think we are not good enough, or smart enough, or strong enough to do what God wants us to do. But that's never stopped God from using someone before, and it won't stop him from using you. When God called Moses to deliver the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, Moses complained, Who am I that you would choose me? Exodus 3:11. And when God called Jeremiah to be a prophet, Jeremiah responded, I don't know how to speak because I'm only a young man. Jeremiah 1:6. But God doesn't call qualified people. He qualifies people. If you're willing to say yes to God, He will give you everything you need to do what He asks you to do. It doesn't matter if you're a nobody or someone who feels like they have nothing to offer. God can use you in a mighty way. Just ask Him. Number 3, use what you have. David didn't have a sword or a shield or even armor. All he had was a sling and some stones. But he didn't complain. He didn't make excuses. He didn't say, I can't fight Goliath because I don't have any weapons. He simply did the best he could with what he had. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations where we feel like we do not have what we need to succeed. We might not have the right tools or resources, or even the perfect plan. But we do have something. We have God. And if we're willing to use what we have, God will help us do the rest. When the Israelites were about to go into battle against the Midianites, God told them to use trumpets, jars, and jugs to create a loud noise to confuse their enemies. The people followed God's instructions, and they won the battle. Judges 7:18-22. Sometimes we try to do things our own way. We make elaborate plans, and we put all of our energy into making things happen according to our timeline. But God doesn't always work that way. Sometimes He calls us to do something simple, like use a sling and a stone. When we trust God and use what we have, He will honor us and give us the results we want. So the next time you feel like you don't have what you need, remember David, just use what you have and trust God for the rest. Number 4, stand for what's right. From the moment he heard Goliath's challenge, David was angry. He was angry that someone would be so bold as to challenge the God of Israel. He wanted to fight Goliath, not because he was afraid, but because he was angry. And when David finally got his chance to fight Goliath, he didn't hold back. He ran towards the giant, not away from him, and he fought with everything he had. Sometimes we see injustice, and we hear people being attacked, and we do nothing. We stay silent when we should speak up. We look the other way when we should be helping. But when we do this, we're agreeing with those who are doing wrong. And that's not where God wants us to be. In a world where it's easy to go along with the crowd and just keep your head down, it can be hard to stand up for what's right. But standing up for what's right isn't always easy. Sometimes it takes courage and conviction. But when we stand up for what's right, we're not just standing up for ourselves, we're also standing up for God. Because when we stand up for what's right, we're agreeing with God and His Word. And that's a powerful place to be. So the next time you see someone being treated unfairly, or when you hear someone being attacked, don't stay silent. Don't look the other way. Stand up and speak out. Stand up and help. Stand up and be a voice for those who can't speak for themselves. When you do this, you'll be standing in line with God and His Word, and that's a powerful place to be. Number 5, the battle belongs to the Lord. After David defeated Goliath, the whole Israelite army cheered. They praised God for giving them the victory. They danced and sang and celebrated. And even though David had been the one to slay the giant, he knew that the victory didn't belong to him. It belonged to God. In the same way, when we face our giants, we need to remember that the battle belongs to God, not to us. When Nehemiah was called while serving the king of the Persian Empire to rebuild the city walls of Jerusalem, he knew he couldn't do it on his own. So he prayed, God, our God, give me success, please, and grant me wisdom as I serve before this man. And the king said to me, whatever the king's representative says to you, do, for I have sent him with full power to do as you say. Nehemiah 2:20. When we acknowledge that the battle belongs to God, we're able to approach the situation with a lot more confidence. We know that we're not in this alone. We have God on our side, and He's already given us everything we need to win the battle. So the next time you face a giant, take a moment to remember this. The battle belongs to God. Relax, take a deep breath, and trust that God will give you the strength and the wisdom you need to win the victory. When David faced Goliath, he didn't have much going for him. He was young and inexperienced. He wasn't even a soldier. But what he did have was faith. And because he had faith, he was able to defeat the giant. Let's apply these same principles to our lives. Let's choose faith over fear. Let's trust that God can use us. Let's use what we have. Let's stand up for what's right and remember that the battle belongs to God. When we do this, we'll be able to face whatever challenges come our way with confidence and courage. And we'll be able to know that no matter what happens, God is with us and He will give us the strength we need to win.